My guest today is Jenny Dean, the founder and executive director of Channel Mom. A former broadcast journalist, Jenny worked for BBC, ABC, CBS affiliates, and other news outlets. But after giving birth to her first child, Jenny hit a low spot, being at home with her newborn. She was uninspired and experienced really severe depression. And this was despite her love for her new son and for her husband. And Jenny struggled for a very long time. Eventually, finding a newfound faith in God, Jenny pulled from her depression and her severe melancholy and was inspired to create a support network for other mothers. And that's when Channel Mom was born. A Channel Mom is an outreach program, and it's designed to provide support to moms wherever they are in their journey and whatever they're experiencing. So they may be married or single, living in $1 million house, or out on the streets. They may also even be living in prison. Jenny and her team will find them and find a way to support them. From parenting tips to financial resources to skill development, Channel Mom uses outreach, podcasts, radio shows, blogs, and whatever other tools they can find to reach moms with both support and appreciation for being mothers. Now, Jenny is a master storyteller, and I think you're going to find a great human interest story here as well. So if you're finding value in this podcast, if you do me a favor and please just press that subscribe button, helps me out a lot. So please now enjoy my conversation with Jenny Dean. Hello, Jenny Dean. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on today. It's an honor.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you. I know you're on your anniversary weekend vacation right now. And what a trooper to leave that, your husband, your kids, and come and play with me for an hour. So I really appreciate it. I'm sure.
I have hotel curtains behind me.
To prove it, yes. As if we needed proof. Well, please thank them for me as well, because I know that, they had to give you up for a very short weekend anyway. So give up some of your time. Well, all right. So we are here to talk about Channel Mom, of which you are the founder and the executive director. And why don't you start by giving us just a little background on what Channel Mom is, and then we'll talk about an upcoming event you're going to have, and then move on from there.
To do that, I need to go back a little bit to kind of give you the history of why I felt compelled to be the one who founded Channel Mom. All right. If you don't mind, is that okay?
It's actually my next question, so please do that.
Okay. Well, then, what do you want me to tell you
this
first?
Is great. Put it all together, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's me kind of stepping in as the reporter. I'm sorry. What happened for me is that I was born into a family of intellectuals. My parents are academics, ivory tower folks, PhDs. My father's actually a theologian, and my mother was, kind of a big, small deal in the women's rights movement back in the 70s. And they take academics and intellectual pursuits and cultural endeavors very seriously. So I grew up in a family that didn't exactly point me toward what I ended up finding, if that makes sense. And I love my parents very much. They're still alive, thankfully, and my brother.
Wow,
but I, in the midst of that, I had two goals as a child, and I promise this is going to get to the answer that you're looking for.
This is actually really interesting.
Thank you. I had two goals. One was to marry my nursery school sweetheart, who was, 4 years old at the time. And he's now sitting over there in a hotel bed.
You are kidding me. I've heard junior high. I have not heard preschool.
Yeah, preschool.
Wow. That is beautiful. All right.
All I'll say is we've known each other for 50 plus years. I won't go farther than that, but we've known each other for quite a long time.
That's incredible.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I had two goals. One was to marry my nursery school sweetheart, and the second was to be a television reporter. And I was a pretty ambitious kid. So at a very young age, I started writing, informational interview requests to, heads of radio stations and television stations. And I did a little cable news in our little tiny town. And I was a radio.
What age is this, and what town were you in? What state?
My husband and I grew up in a little town called St. Peter, Minnesota.
Oh,
my father and mother taught at Gustavus Adolphus College.
I know,
tiny little town. Yeah. Do you?
Yeah, my brother-in-law went there. Gustavus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. You don't hear that very often, but yeah.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
So anyway, we grew up in that town, and I just began to pursue, because I knew I needed to, because at that time, before we all had one of these in our hands, looking at that screen.
Good old days.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There was only one screen in town, and it was a pretty competitive environment to try to get on that screen. So I began very early pursuing ways to set myself apart. And so I did a lot of letters to news directors and so on to try to get going. And so I was a disc jockey at the age of 16 or 17, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at the local radio station. And I did some stuff at the cable news station. Yeah. And then I worked at BBC. They told me, well, I don't know if this is true to this day, but I wrote myself my own international fellowship proposal to work at the BBC in London as an American intern. And at first they said, that's silly, we don't do that. And then this wonderful man in the bowels of BBC found my letter and said, oh, let's give it a shot,
Unbelievable.
And so I came over as an intern, no internship program, no host family, nothing. I just landed in Heathrow with 6 or 7 bags all by myself, nobody to pick me up, nothing.
What age was this?
I was 20, I think 20 or 21 at the time. I was a junior in college because it was
a great story.
Well, thank you.
I love it.
So they told me that, we think you're the first American intern ever. You know what I mean? So that was kind of cool. So I worked at BBC. I had the requirement of Occidental College, where both my husband and I went in Los Angeles, was that I had to write a thesis after the fact about what I learned. So I did a thesis for honors when I got back to Occidental about my experience at BBC and what I learned about the BBC television production environment. So I was able to work at BBC at a young age as well. And long story short, my goal of becoming a television reporter did come true. And right out of graduating from Oxy in Southern California, I got a job at ABC News in Washington. And I was,
First job. Unbelievable.
Job.
That's really unheard of.
Yeah, maybe.
First job going straight to ABC in Washington? That's
Well, I wasn't on air.
Whatever. You can sweep the floors. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
back in the day, it was, and for people older than me and my age, I got scripts and such for Peter Jennings and not Tom Brokaw.
How exciting!
Sam Donaldson and it was
unbelievable
because you're in the midst of what is unfolding in history, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I got to be a part of all that, and that was a privilege. And I didn't mean to go through all this. I really wanted to tell you how Channel Mom came about, but I went from there to
this is how.
Yeah, it is
right?
sort of.
I mean, yeah.
And I went from there to McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. I was a producer for a guy named Hodden Carter, who had been the State Department spokesman under Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And I was his producer. I'm old.
Not as old as me.
Well, you remember all of this. Yeah.
I do. Sure. Yeah.
He actually just passed not long ago, a month or two ago. But I was his producer. And then from there, my husband and I had been broken up for 2.5 years, hadn't spoken, and we got back together, and it meant that I needed to move back to LA, and the rest is history. I worked for Financial News Network. I became an on-air reporter at a Palm Springs affiliate, because when you're going to go on air, you kind of got to start small. Yeah. So I was a little bit on air at FNN, Financial News Network, which later merged with CNBC. And then I went to Palm Springs, and then I went to Cleveland, and then I went to Denver. So that's kind of how that unfolded. But this is what I'm going to say. It's an unlikely story, and some of where I'm going to go, people will not identify with it, but that's okay. I grew up, as I said, in this intellectual academic environment, and as a result, that was kind of my background. I did not have kind of a strong background in traditional things like faith in God, honestly, and so I got to this place where I was in Cleveland. I was a television reporter. I was focused on my career. I did not think I would ever have children. I thought it was going to be about my I thought it was going to be my career, my husband's career. And then suddenly at about age 31 or 32, I thought, oh, I would like a baby. Yeah. And so I hope this gives hope to some people because I had to go through infertility treatments because of just kind of the way my body operates. I had to go through infertility and all the stuff just to get pregnant. And I was able to conceive a baby at age 34, almost 35. And lo and behold, our son Otis was born. And that's when the beginning of Channel Mom happened. And here's why.
Okay.
I was a reporter in Cleveland for 3 years. I had the privilege of doing just incredible stories. I mean, I sort of think, that Forrest Gump paradigm where he sort of was a part of history throughout that movie where he just kept showing up in the middle of history.
Funny. Yeah. I just said this to a guest recently. I said, you're just like Forrest Gump was. You're in all these places. So I know exactly.
Yes. Yeah. And so I've done everything from meet Lady Diana to interview President Ford to report on the O.J. Simpson trial. So you know what I mean? So I've just been immersed in news kind of at the crux of the things that were happening. So privilege and an honor. But I was at the Cleveland affiliate and we had just had our son and my contract came up for renewal. And after that happened, the new news director, there was a brand new news director and he said, yeah, we're not going to renew you.
Oh.
And I was devastated.
Something to do with having a baby?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'll tell you the punchline to that story in a minute. But
okay.
But here's what happened for me, and not everybody will identify with this side of the story. But
no need for that to be.
Yeah, that's true. We can all learn from each other.
Absolutely.
TV was my religion, and it was the thing that gave me a sense of significance and value, and even sort of. It's kind of an eternity because you're sort of on videotape forever. And so it was my religion. And when I lost my TV job, I lost my religion. And there I was with a brand new baby and I sunk into about 1.5 years of postpartum depression.
Wow.
And my heart goes out to anybody that suffers with depression because you go to this dark place where you just don't see the point of anything. And there I was with my baby. And thankfully I didn't feel bad about him. I didn't, have violent feelings toward him or anything. I just didn't feel happy about life. And I remember for this whole 1.5 years feeling guilty because I thought I've got a healthy baby, which is more than a lot of women can say. And I just don't want to be alive. And I feel like everything's dark and there's no point. And sort of that's where I was for about 1.5 years. And in the midst of that, I went in a search, for lack of a better term, for God and meaning and religion. And that's what I did. I embarked on that. Let me give you the punchline to the TV story before I tell you how that landed on God and on Channel Mom.
Okay.
The punchline to the other story was, and I don't talk about the affiliate that I worked for or the network I worked for because it's a touchy situation.
Right.
But I had an attorney in Cleveland approach me and he had been in a number of my news stories. And he said, they can't really let you go right after you've had a baby. That's a form of discrimination.
Feels like it.
And so he went to the station behind the scenes and on my behalf got me paid for 1 year to be a mother. And that was sort of my first God
glimpse.
Wink. Yeah, just sort of like this matters to the creator of the universe in my estimation. And not every mom gets paid. Obviously, I'm sure other moms are saying, well, I didn't get paid for the first year of being a mom, but I did. And it made me doubly invested in the cause of motherhood. And so I'm now grateful for that because I saw it as a role that should sort of receive some kind of payment in the end, because it's a deeply valued role to the whole world, to the globe. So in my search, my husband and I moved to Denver, Colorado, where you and I reside.
So did that pull you out of depression? That just journey that you were on, did it start to pull you out, or was this a slower version? Okay.
Yes,
so when you came to Denver, you were still struggling.
Yeah, still struggling.
Okay. Yeah.
I got a job at Channel 4 in Denver, which is a CBS affiliate, and put our little boy in daycare part-time. I was pretty opposed to daycare full-time, which is not to say I judge any mom who does that. I don't. That's not where I come from. But I just felt like I was supposed to take care of him more often than not. And so I started working in the television station, was still struggling with feelings of darkness. And I won't go into the big, long story or my testimonial, as we say in the Christian world. But what happened for me was that I got led to the God of the Bible. And suddenly he sort of showed me the meaning and the value and the building block of motherhood in the context of the universe. And it changed everything for me. And sort of right after I became a believer and right after I began to follow Christ, what God showed me was, and someday I could tell my whole testimonial because it was magnificent what God did to show me himself. But what he whispered to me after that time was, you were in the spotlight, the television spotlight, and that was a false light compared to the light I want to develop in you as a mother who nurtures my children. End of story. And what he showed me was, you could answer this question. What do TV news personalities bring to you? What do they give to you? What is the content that they bring to you?
You're asking me the question?
Mm-hmm.
You mean, well, that's a more loaded question than perhaps it sounds like on the surface, because on the surface one would say news, but you could also go on to say depression, lack of hope, despair.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So negative.
Yeah.
And I
if it bleeds, it leads.
Amen. And that was a thing for us.
Yeah. And it still is. It's just it's the nature of that business. That's what gets the human attention.
That's right. And also it's based on the banner of fear that we sort of raise that because we know it'll draw people. If you can scare people, they'll watch.
Right. Yes.
And we used to be told that, just scare them, coming up 6 o'clock, something that will frighten you, and
they actually told you that. They said,
scare them. They said, scare them. So they'll want to.
They literally said, scare them.
Just make them afraid. And two quick newsroom examples, which I think you'll find interesting. They're also in my book. I wrote one book along the way. One was, we were, back in the day when you had to rip wire, you had to rip UPI and AP wires off of a printer. Yeah. And they would tell you what was going on. There was no internet. Somebody in the newsroom in Cleveland ripped a story and said, there's a fireworks store on fire in this small town in Cleveland. And, as she would give us updates as it unfolded. And at one point she said, "Oh, it's getting better and better. There are 3 dead and 2 of them are children." And that was her way of describing it. And I also remember
who was this saying this? The producer?
This was the newsroom. I can't remember what we called her, but she was the news desk operator. She would operate the news desk and kind of update everybody on what was going on. And then I also remember a producer jumping out of her chair and cheering when a window washer fell to his death in Cleveland because she knew she had a lead. So here's my point. What God showed me was I was in that spotlight and I was honored, and all people would run up to me in the grocery store and say, "Oh my gosh, can I have your autograph? I recognize you from the news."
Right.
And I what I began to see as I began to have faith in God was that I was honored in the TV spotlight for giving people negative news all day and harmful stories. And when I became, quote unquote, just a mom, nobody wanted my autograph anymore. Nobody thought I was important. Nobody honored that role. And I felt like what my creator showed me was they were honoring you when you were giving people negative news and not adding to their lives, but not honoring you when you were literally raising the next generation, which is what impacts the rest of our world.
Yeah.
If we raise them up well, we have a better world. So that was the birth of Channel Mom. He showed me to honor the role of motherhood.
And not just honor it, but help it along too, right?
Correct.
That's the, and we'll get into, all right, so we're going to shift gears a little bit because I want to get into the way that you do honor, support, educate, inspire, and all the things that you have done with Channel Mom. That story is so much better than I even would have guessed if I had no idea what was behind Channel Mom. So really, really important. One thing I just did want to ask though, before we leave that subject, these people, as horrific as that was, what they were saying, certainly those people that made those comments had to be, I have to believe they had to be a rarity and not the common, not the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not the common denominator.
Yeah, you're right. Oh goodness. I don't, enjoy throwing anybody under the bus.
No, I know.
And my guess
I'm
is,
asking about the industry, though, not about
but
the
I
people.
just threw some people under the bus. So
well,
what
we don't
I'm
know who they
is,
are. Yeah, we
that's
don't know
true,
who
on
they
purpose.
are, so that's okay.
So
yeah.
Here's what I would say. You know, they talk about ER room humor to ease the pain of what you see unfold every day.
Well, that could be,
yeah. I think it was part of that.
Okay.
I think that was also, they knew that's what drove their business, was negative, salacious, you know, terrifying stories. And so they think, you know, this is going to make the Newsday better. But I think, and there were some truly, not crass, I can't think of the word, but people that just had no feelings to a certain degree in the newsroom, but that was not the rule. That was not the rule.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I have to assume that, because the industry as a whole anybody can turn on the news and see, let's not even go there. You know, it's so bad. Yeah. But also, like I said, I have to believe that some of the individuals are not that way, or maybe many of them. Okay, but let's go on to the next. Well, okay, so the reason why we're doing this today is because you're having a fundraiser come up. So I just wanted to mention that before we get into the rest of the story, so people are thinking about it maybe, and whether it's something they might want to participate in, support financially, or tell their friends about. Especially if they're in the Colorado area, but you know, anyone could certainly, no matter where people are listening from, can support Channel Mom through this. So do you want to just talk a little bit? I'll just start by saying I went to this event last year. It was the first one, I think, your first actual in-person fundraiser. Is that right? A blast, a total blast, even though we got some bad weather. It was so much fun and really inspiring. So yeah, tell us what it's going to be, because it's going to be the same place.
Going to be at the same place. And now this place is iconic because it's going to go down in history.
Heard that. Yeah.
So very briefly, let me say in 30 seconds, what Channel Mom does is provide encouragement and support to mothers and to their families through media. And we have a syndicated radio show, and then we also have a podcast like you. But in addition to that, we help mothers on the ground. So we have a compassion fund that helps single mothers who are struggling and have exhausted other means of assistance, like government assistance and such. So we help them do things like pay a car payment, pay a car repair bill. We just helped a single mom, and there are 2 single moms in the household because both she and her daughter are single moms. We helped her get her home out of foreclosure. So we do really important stuff to try to give a single mom a leg up to get back on her feet. But the second thing we do, and this is the program I'm maybe most proud of, is go into prison. We have a curriculum for incarcerated moms that's a 9-week curriculum whereby we re-engage them with their children. We work on healing principles for all of their wounds and all of the wounds they've caused others, and re-engage them with their child from a healthier parenting perspective. And the research suggests, and I can give you more research after I say this, but the research suggests that has to happen to prevent the child from following the mother into prison, because it's very, very common. Very, very,
very high recidivism. Yeah.
Correct. And so that is why we do what we do, is to help the mom wherever we find her, whether it's through the airwaves or on the ground or in a prison, just to honor a mom and help her get back on track. So,
and I'm going to interrupt you just briefly, because then I think you're just about to say what you're fundraising for. Because I think this question is important to listeners. I have listeners who are Muslim, who are Jewish, who are atheists, who are whatever.
Yeah.
Do the people, and Christian, of course, everything, and nothing. Do all the women that you're supporting, is their becoming Christian a part of their qualification, I guess, to get help?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because that is the case in some nonprofits.
No, I think of Jesus. I mean, we certainly use scriptural principles. We certainly quote scripture. We certainly pray for them. But no, first of all, it's not required that they be a Christian to be part of the class. It's not required that they be a Christian when they leave the class. I mean, if Jesus stands next to me in the class, he would be saying to me, love everyone for me. That's the end of story, is I'm called to love people for Christ. Right. And so, no, we don't make it a requirement. Yeah. And I know we've had women in the class that are not believers, in that vernacular. I'm just called to love them for Jesus and to reconnect them with their children. Yeah. And that's what we do. So the fundraiser is called Accelerate. It's a play on words, accelerate and celebrate.
Yeah.
And it is both an acceleration and a celebration. And here's the really cool thing. And I hope some people will be jazzed as I talk about this and excited to go out, because this is kind of a once in a lifetime thing, because it's at Bandimere Speedway in Denver, Colorado. And Bandimere Speedway, if you're a Denverite or Coloradan, you know that they're have announced that they're closing down that iconic location at Thunder Mountain in Morrison, and they're going to be moving. And this is the last year you can come. And here's the cool thing about what we do is you get to race. They provide the car and you get to race. It's not as scary as it sounds.
No, it's not. And it's mind blowing. I didn't do it. Not for other reasons, but everyone can do it. Everyone who comes, right?
Yeah. 18 and over.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can bring people younger than 18, but 18 and over get to drive.
To race.
Yeah. And I raced my son last year. I think I won. He thinks he won. But anyway, you get to get in a Dodge Challenger
Photo finish.
And race down that iconic speedway. Yeah. It's a quarter of a mile. You don't go, faster than 100. So it's not that scary. But it's a blast. I mean, you get to do the thing that you kind of wish you could do on the freeway. You just aren't supposed to do it on the freeway.
No one's in front of you. And no ticket, no chance of getting a ticket, right?
Yes. And our mutual friend Barbara would be upset if I did not tell people that Darling Revival is going to be there. Super popular Colorado band. They played at Red Rocks. I think they opened for someone at Red Rocks. Darling Revival will be there. So there's live music. There's fantastic food. The food was really good last year, and I'm confident it will be fantastic again this year. And one other little special thing. You and I are both on YouTube in some capacity, I believe.
Yeah.
A very well-known YouTube influencer who's called The Minimal Mom. That's her name, The Minimal Mom, Dawn Matson. She has millions of views on her videos because she helps people be minimalists and declutter and get rid of all the crap in our lives that encumber us. And she's got a ton of followers. She's our MC. Dawn Matson, The Minimal Mom, is the MC of the whole event.
How do you spell her name? How do you spell her last name?
Madsen, Dawn Madsen.
Yeah.
And she's very popular because she knows what she's doing. And she gets you to get, out of the piles of stuff you have and be happier and freer. And so she's going to be giving decluttering tips throughout the whole evening because that's what she does.
Oh, that's funny.
And she'll be our MC. And then, as I said, we'll have live music and live auction and the whole deal. But people will also get to race.
Okay. You just went right over live auction. Live auction was my favorite part of the evening. And I'll tell you why, because this is not a huge event. It's relative, I've been to many fundraisers, at a hotel in downtown Denver or something where there's maybe over 1,000 or more people. Okay. So when you are going to bid on something, you're going against, people, lots of money, lots of people, everybody bidding each other up. There were some things last year that I could not believe because it wasn't that massive number of people. It's more
last year was 128. It was our first one, 128.
Oh.
We're aiming for several hundred this year, but still that's not going to be high competition.
Right. No. So you could, something, I'm just going to say really quickly, because there's one thing, there was a Breckenridge, I think it was a condo or a house in Breckenridge for a week.
5 nights.
For 5 nights. One bidder, she won. Our friend Barbara. Huh?
$1,000 for 5 nights.
Right.
And it was, I think, a 4 or 5 bedroom home.
Yeah. That was ridiculous.
Yeah. You would typically get paid more than that for 2 nights. And if not closer to 1 night.
1 night. Yeah. It'd be more like 1 night. So it's an amazing, the auction was the most fun, and the auctioneer, I don't know who's doing it this year, but that was really fun. It was just really, really fun, uplifting, just a fun night. So we can move on.
Here's the fun thing I'm going to give your podcast followers and audience. A special preview, which I haven't done for anybody else.
Okay.
There is such fun stuff this year. We have a trip to Italy. Yes, that is a Tuscany wine tasting. You have a meal made by a personal chef. You get to go on a Tuscany wine tasting tour.
Wow.
It's incredible. And I want to shout out to Mitch Stewart, because Mitch Stewart is this company that gives us reasonably low cost trips so that people can start bidding at a low cost. They don't have to start off at $10,000.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or even $5,000.
Yeah.
And these things are worth thousands and thousands, but we get them for a lower cost.
Yeah.
So we have a trip to Italy. We have again 7 nights and 8 days in the nicest parts of Mexico. Cabo and
Mm-hmm.
Acapulco and Riviera and, all the
Yeah.
nice places.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend, my BFF, went last year on one of our trips and said it was like 5-star. It was incredible.
Really?
Yeah. She said it was an oasis. She said we were out in a jungle it was incredible, she said. So, and the treatment was bar none. And so they're
great price. Yeah.
You don't get them for a good price because they're cheap. You get them for a good price because we're getting a special deal and we're giving it to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, trip to the Tuscany region of Italy. I hope I'm saying that right. And to various places in Mexico.
Yeah.
We just got 2 fantastic trips. Somebody gave us their home in Kauai, which is gorgeous. I think that's for 5 nights again.
Yeah.
And we also have this fabulous place up near where I live in Bailey, Colorado. And it's a fishing lodge that very, very well-known people in Colorado go to, which I'm not allowed to say, but probably one of the best NFL quarterbacks you've ever known kind of thing.
Wonder who it could be.
And it's a fishing lodge and cabins, but they give you like a 7, I think last time we were there, 7-course meal. You get a fishing guide to take you out and fish in the Platte River.
Okay.
It's amazing. So that's anyway, we've got great stuff.
Okay, this is amazing. And there's other smaller things that people don't want to, you don't have to go into what they are, but there's low cost items that are also amazing. All right. But mostly it's all going to help this program. So let's get into what the program is. And we will definitely put in the show notes and it'll be up on the little screen at, where to buy tickets and how to buy.
Well, let me say, Deborah, it airs tomorrow. In the sense, not airs, it happens tomorrow. So as you're airing this, the event will be on the 27th.
Yeah.
Yes.
We might do some sneak previews of this podcast. So we'll see. We'll see if we can help.
So anyway, Thursday, July 27th, 5 p.m.
Yes.
The best evening of your summer, I hope.
Yeah.
So I hope people will come out. You can get tickets. I know you're going to put it in your show notes, but you can get tickets at channelmom.org, channelmom.org.
Yep. Just like it sounds, channelmom.org. Perfect. Okay. Well, that was exciting. I'm really excited. I didn't know about any of that stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just move into what your program is a little bit more then, because first of all, when did you become syndicated on the radio? Because I did see that, but I wasn't aware of that last year. So has that been going for a while?
Well, it's impressive, but it's not necessarily impressive as it sounds. You have to pay to be on Salem Radio Network's FTP
don't ruin
site.
it for us. We don't have to look behind the curtains.
But, I'll tell you this is an honor to us. A number of stations take us and we don't pay anything. They want us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
And so we're in various locations around the country, everywhere from Montana to Illinois to Arkansas.
Fun.
So we're all over the place. And then we're also podcast. So we're syndicated radio and it's on some Salem stations, but also some independent stations, and both secular and Christian stations.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. So now you have a podcast, you have a blog, you have a podcast and the radio station and the blog. So three different ways that you're communicating. What are you teaching moms? What's the basis? What's the nut of it, of the program and what you do?
Okay. Thank you for asking. And by the way, I realized as I was looking through your past podcasts, I'm in incredible company.
Thank you.
The fashion designer and you as well. But I'm just saying the people that you've been able to secure. So you're an impressive woman and they say yes to you, but some really fantastic guests you've had. So people should watch your other podcasts. I've got some
really exciting ones coming up too. So it's going to get better and better, but thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the hard part, getting guests, right?
Yeah. Getting good guests. I know that. I know that.
Yeah.
So look, I think what happened for me was because I grew up in the environment that I grew up in, and I honor that environment. But it can also lead you to the idea that, your 6+ figure salary, your education, your neighborhood, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, all those things are far more important than motherhood when it comes to degrees of status. Mm-hmm. And my heart aches about that because we are relying on women and men to raise up a generation that is a blessing to our world and does, righteous work and is there to serve and to help people and to care for people and to love people. And I think, then we need to honor the people that are doing the work to raise this next generation or we're in trouble. And I think motherhood, you go to parties and you say to people, what do you do? And if I were to say, well, I'm a mom, they'd say, well, yeah, but what do you do?
Exactly.
We don't honor the
I
role.
know.
We don't honor the role. And so
We don't.
I felt called, thank you for agreeing.
Yeah,
I felt called to go into the public arena in some capacity, wherever people would take me,
mm-hmm.
and kind of rewrite the value system and say, look, yes, this woman may have a six-figure salary, but she's also raising up the next generation. Or no, this woman doesn't have a six-figure salary, but she's raising up the next generation.
Right.
And you should honor her because you want her to do it well for the sake of the future of our whole planet. So what I try to do as a kind of the shell around the contents is just come to motherhood and to mothers with an honoring posture, and just say, this is an honorable role, ladies. And even if nobody's thanked you this week, even if you're still in your sweats and you haven't combed your hair and you have a banana peel on your foot, what you're doing is immensely important, even if you feel immensely unimportant. Yeah. So I come at it from that perspective, and I want to give moms. I had one mom recently tell me, when you thank me at the end of every show, because I make a point of doing that, saying thank you for the sacrifices you've made this week and for all that you've done. And for
God,
the
it almost makes me tear up. It actually, when you just said that, it really did. I just thought, God, no, I don't think anyone has ever said that. I mean, your kids say it, and I have children, and I have their father, but you're right that somebody just says that from a cultural perspective, from just somebody who doesn't know you, just to say thank you. Like we say thank you for your service to somebody who's in the military.
Yeah. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah. Well,
thank you for what you did. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you did as a mama. It was sacrificial. It was selfless.
Yeah.
All the things you did. I'm thanking you personally, because I know there were days that you thought, no one realizes all I'm doing for the sake of these babies.
Yeah.
Right? But, truth.
Yeah, oh, yeah. It's just been a while, so I forget the hard part, because I feel like it was so much joy that it really does overshadow it when you get past the, really hard parts where you're stuck at home and, alone and all that. But can I interject one quick thing? Because I just want to kind of add to your sense that the culture in general is not very embracing and continues to be less embracing. And sometimes you have to be like, we're a fish in the water. We don't always see what our culture is doing. But I just got back from 3.5, almost 4 months in Belize, on this island in Belize, which is in Central America, and where my son is actually working right now, which is why I was there. And the biggest thing, if somebody said, what is the biggest difference? Yeah, it's a developing country. It's, they don't have any cars even on everything's very different. Everything about the culture is different. The biggest thing that I loved, that I noticed, was that everyone called me mama. All my friends, everyone said, and they call any woman really mama, and they honor you. They make you, the huge Mother's Day. There was in town a huge Mother's Day thank you. Not even on Mother's Day, just to honor the women on that island. And they were dressed to the nines. And it's built into that culture from beginning to end. From everyone honors mothers. And I wouldn't have known exactly what your whole effort was about had I not seen the dichotomy, the complete difference between the United States of America and another culture that truly puts their money where their mouth is, puts their efforts and their love and respect where they're for mothers. And we don't do it here. So that
then this makes me want to say this. I think your son maybe is in the hospitality industry. Yeah. We should make our next year's auction item a trip to Belize.
Oh my goodness.
So mothers can be honored. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every young man on that street that passes you, hey, mama, go ahead, mama. I'm not kidding. It is unbelievable.
Oh, you make me want to move to Belize.
Yeah, I know. So continue. I'm sorry, it's my last interruption with my asides, but yeah.
I love it. Thank you. I mean, it's your show. You can make an aside whenever you want.
Well,
so you asked about content, and I told you the posture at which we start, which is to encourage the mom and honor the mom and remind her how immensely important her job is. But then, we try to bring in things that are relevant and modern, and we try to get experts and authors. Now, yes, we will bring in well-known Christians to just encourage people from that perspective. So Kathy
Sure.
Lee Gifford, Kathy Lee Gifford's been on the show a number of times, and a woman
I
named
bet you
Sheila
two are a
Walsh.
hoot together.
Yeah, we are kind of a lot of energy. We're kind of a lot. Let's put it that way together.
You're a lot alike. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess we are kind of.
Little
She's
bit.
a lovely woman, very humble, and was very kind to me. She didn't have to be, because she's far better known than I am, but she's a lovely woman. And I'm trying to think of some of our better known folks. We've had some really well known names on the show, which draws
Yeah.
people. Our minimal mom, she draws a ton of people because she's got such a strong following. But in addition to people like that, we also just have regular mamas that are experts in whatever, and they encourage women on healthy parenting principles and potty training and ways to develop values in your child, and point them to service and how to forgive, and just all kinds of stuff that's relevant to raising children. And so we do that, and we do a lot of encouragement and a provision of the latest and greatest parenting techniques and principles and values of family and children, and whatever we can do to encourage the mother.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the what happens, for example, in the prison ministry, or you probably don't call it a ministry, or maybe you do. I don't know.
Some people do. We try to. Thank you for asking it that way. Look, it's a conundrum for somebody like me, because I did grow up as I have repeated several times, in an intellectualized, ivory tower, academic, PhD'd family. And most of them do not share my Christian faith. They don't sort of think the Bible's true. And so for me to come to people and say, look, because I believe what I believe, because I lean into the love of Jesus, I feel called to love you and forgive you and come alongside you in the name of Christ and what he taught us and what he's done for me. And so, yes, I bring in that perspective, but I'm also called to just love everybody. So I call it an outreach, so that people won't necessarily be intimidated by the word ministry. And so we just say, look, come in and we're going to bless you and love you. I mean, it's so cute how these, some of these women have done some really bad things. So I don't want to just say, oh, isn't it fabulous? Yeah. Yes. Some of the women in prison have done some really awful things.
Yeah.
And so I don't just go in there naive and Pollyanna and rose-colored glasses. Yeah. But I think everyone needs a second chance. And for the sake of their children, these women need a second chance. Because if you don't work on healing them and forgiveness in their lives and compassion, then those babies are done. They're gone for. If they don't have a mama who's being led to something better and to better principles and to love and peace and forgiveness, then the kids are so much more likely to follow them into prison. But we try to train these moms up in a different environment. And let me say this on behalf of the women in prison. I don't have the exact statistics, but about 80% of women in prison are mothers. And just to give you a glimpse into how many women are now in prison, we've had a 525% increase in the number of women in prison from 1980 to 2021. So it's burgeoning.
Wow.
It's horrific. And you know what happens? Babies get left behind. And then when babies get left behind, they get pawned off on a family member that is not prepared to take them, or foster care. And then this pattern develops where they feel abandoned. The mother feels shame. And when those two things get together, there's no communication, because the mother doesn't want to talk to the child because she feels like she let the child down and she's got shame, and the child feels abandoned. So it's angry. The child's angry. And so then you have this fissure. Is that what I want? This break in that relationship. And then the baby, the child goes into rebellious behavior, and, they go to mom's ex-boyfriend who's a drug dealer. I mean, it's just this horrible pattern.
Yeah.
And we work to change that pattern. But let me say this on behalf of those women. If someone has been hurt by a criminal who's in prison and they think there's no way I would support an outreach like that, 60% of the women, I think that's the statistic, that are in prison have gone through some kind of domestic violence. And often they'll say, it's the reason I'm here, because they turned around and tried to shoot the person or hurt the person that was committing the violence upon them. Or they felt like they had to deal the drugs, or they had to commit the crime because otherwise their life was threatened, or their children's lives were threatened. So it's a very complicated thing, women in prison. And so we just work
It
to
is.
provide that healing and hope. And I'll tell you what, Deborah, I think you'd be interested in this. I often make a point of saying to my moms in prison, how many of you were preceded by a family member? And just about 100% will raise their hands. Preceded by a family member in a prison. And so it's a legacy that gets passed down. So then we say, how many of you who have kids that are in the teen years or beyond have kids in prison? And they'll raise their hands. And we say, well, we're here to stop that, because we're going to, provide rehabilitation that is mother-centric, loves them for God, does whatever we can to give them values and principles that are scriptural,
Well, so tell me, okay, so you go in and you're speaking to a group at one time, or just one? Is it one-on-one?
Oh, no, it's a group.
Okay.
Our largest class was 21 recently. They try to limit it so that we can be personal.
Right. Have you had, well, okay, this is not a loaded question. It's sort of a cheating question, because I know of at least one person, because you had someone speaking at the fundraiser last year. I think it was at the pre-party for the fundraiser, who was a young woman who just had an amazing experience. Can you talk about her, or anyone else that you just maybe one example of someone who it made a difference for?
I mean, here's the really cool thing, Deborah. Right before I got on air with you, I got an email. I think I can say her first name. Let's just call her V. I got an email from V saying, I'm out and I just wanted to write you for giving me these principles. I'm in contact with my children. I'm still following the program. And it's so fun. I mean, we haven't been able to track every mom that's gotten out, but of the 5 or 6 that we've tracked that have gotten out, at least 4 have been reunited with their children. And that's what you want. You don't want their children floating in the foster care system. As much as I admire people that are willing to foster, you don't want them floating. They want mama back.
Yeah, of course.
So yes, we had Shamara speak, and this particular event on July 27th at 5 p.m. at Bandimere Speedway, we're going to have a young woman named Nay, who recently graduated from our program and is now in a halfway house. She's going to come talk about what a difference the program made to her as a mother.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
We have moms. Very few parents in prison get solid parenting programming. And from what I understand, from what we've learned sort of from being out there, nobody does what we do, which is to re-engage the mother with the child and have exercises that connect them online, that connect them on paper, that they'll be back in their child's life again. We've had mothers say, I wasn't in touch with my child until you came here.
So you're really helping preserve that family unit, which is the most important thing you can possibly do. Yeah.
So yes.
I was just going to say, I know that shame, there is one organization in New York called Children of Promise, which is actually an after-school program. It's a very, very large organization devoted just to helping kids whose parents are in prison. And that has been their work. And one of the things that I've learned from them is that shame is one of the biggest problems for those kids, because, the parents in prison and nobody wants to admit it. So the grandma or whatever, I say, don't tell anyone, don't tell your teacher that this child your mom's in prison or your dad's in prison. Like, it's an embarrassment to the family. So so they're internalizing the shame at such an early age and for so long. Yeah. So I think anytime that you can do anything to bring that together if the mother overcomes her shame, it really helps the child overcome the shame of the parent being in prison, shame is just such a destructive emotion.
It doesn't do us any good.
No. So gosh, I think that prison outreach is just an amazing thing.
Thank you.
And
it does transform them. Shamara had a story about how she came out, last year's lady. She was in prison. She was homeless. She received help from Channel Mom. She has now started her own cleaning business, doing very well. She got her son back. They have, I don't know if it's an apartment or a home, and they've been stable. She's been running this operation. She's hired her own workers.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible. Yeah. I think I have that right. Yeah.
Do you, and then the third one, or the third, in addition to educating, the third segment, I guess we'll call it, or section, is, or focus, is these marginalized moms, financially marginalized, maybe otherwise marginalized, that you help. How do they get your help? How do you find these people that are losing their home or losing their car or don't have food? Those types of things.
Well, first of all, I want to say I loved reading your history, because I know you have a heart for the refugee populations and the immigrant populations. And that's another form of marginalization. But we have these sort of citizens amongst us that we don't even know are marginalized.
I know.
And so these women, and so often it's single moms. And unfortunately, I'm a fan of marriage and intact families. And it's not to say I judge people that don't have that. I don't. But I know it works usually better. And 41% of our kiddos now are born out of wedlock. And so it's a recipe
What
for
do you mean?
being
Over the population?
Yeah.
41% of the U.S. population?
Yes.
Did not know
41% of
that.
children are now born out of wedlock. And so you don't have an immediate structure. And
Shocking.
when you don't have that immediate structure, you're much more likely to have an impoverished single mother. Sometimes it's a single dad, but more often than not, it's a single mom. And you probably know this. The most likely to be the demographic most likely to suffer from poverty is the single parent family. The single mom family. And so
single moms, yeah.
We have an epidemic of it.
Yeah.
And they are marginalized.
Some of those people, though, are with partners. It doesn't mean that they're not. They just may not be married. But they may be with,
That's correct. But again, this is me being a little traditional. If you look at the research, you're less likely to stay with somebody you're living with than you are if you actually married them first. The marriage stats aren't terrific either, but you're less likely if you're just living with somebody to stay with them. So then you're still setting up the kid for a future life of poverty. So yes, we help marginalized moms, and these are the moms that you may not know are marginalized. I mean, we have a mom who's got a full-time job at a hospital that makes probably $50,000 a year, but I think she came from a DV situation, so she can't reach out to the dad. And she finds that just the extra things, school supplies and things like that, are too much for her. So, we try not to make people dependent. So we try to step in for no more than 2 months and say, we're going to help you with rent. We're going to help you with car payment. We're going to help you with a car repair, whatever it is. But we try to step in to get them over a hump so they don't become homeless. And then it's beyond repair, or they don't turn to prostitution or drug use because they're depressed, whatever it is. We try to just give them that leg up. And as I said, we just helped a mother and her daughter, who's also a single parent, save their home of 24 years. If you try to believe everybody's story, and if her story is true, her husband of 24 years left and is giving them no money. So now they've had their house for 24 years and they're at risk of losing it. And she has 4 daughters and one of them's a single mom. And so how do we hear about them? I will say, and this is the plus of the fact that we're a Christian-based, outreach, is that churches will tell us, we partner with a number of churches and they'll come to us and say, we found this mom who was, she came to a church picnic and she didn't have enough gas to go home, or, things like that. Or we now have a hotline. And interestingly enough, we had a woman from Pennsylvania. Yeah, a hotline online. And so they can just immediately email us. Okay. And a woman in Pennsylvania got a hold of us a couple weeks ago. So I called her because I believe in having my hands in the midst and understanding who our clientele is and how they suffer and how we can be of service. And she told me her story. And we're now helping her. But let me just say, we try to attach whatever assistance we're going to give to an education. So we're not sending them to college, but we try to connect them with we've got 2 curriculums. Okay. So it's either the prison curriculum or we've got a mentoring curriculum. And we have a wonderful woman named Loretta who does a Zoom class online where she mentors women that we give money to for 4 weeks. Because you don't want to just say, here's the money. Right. And there's no instruction. Yeah. We try to immerse them. And again, principles. And sometimes we want to give them the Christian principles that we stand on because we do want them to value relationship. We do want them to value marriage so that they will next time stay married. And we do, you see what I'm saying? And, but we also have budgeting as part of it. And planning, for future, they have to make future goals. I mean, all kinds of things that they can put in line to keep them from going back to what we're trying to lift them out.
That's probably the most important of all, really, and it's the harder work. It's not just handing somebody money. I mean, that's a much more extensive. So who does the work? Are these volunteers? Do you have a good volunteer team?
Deborah, if you would like to tell people that we need volunteers, I would be ever so pleased with that announcement.
Well, you'll have to tell them. I'll just give you the platform. I'm just assuming because anybody who has volunteers, is it a volunteer-based
It is.
group?
It is.
So yeah, I mean, everyone needs volunteers.
Yeah, and on any
Not,
given day, as the executive director, I'm stepping in. I teach the prison class often. I mean, we have three or four volunteers that do teach our Denver Women's Correctional Facility class, but I will step in and do that. I personally delivered the check to the mom who needed the check to get out of foreclosure. The woman in Pennsylvania, I talked to her and got her story to help the mentor before we give her a check. And in some cases, when I am a little concerned about the lifestyle, I'll say, look, we want you to take the mentoring class before we give you any money. Because they'll kind of confess to me really unhealthy patterns. And I think, oh, girl, you just need some help to instruction, you know?
And you could be giving them money that they're buying drugs with or whatever.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to know. You have to have some idea, I guess, where it's headed.
Well, and there's a syndrome that I think you'd be interested in. There's a syndrome amongst, oh my gosh, you got to be careful about stereotyping. In my book, and I'll do a pitch for my book. It's called Mom, Youre Amazing. Okay. I interviewed a number of moms, and one of the mothers in the book, and they each share their mothering secret. One of the mothers in the book is a foster mom, and she has fostered 103 children in her lifetime. Gave birth to 3, but fostered 103. And she said, Jenny, if I see a pattern, it's this. You have a woman who had sex with somebody she wasn't married to, had a baby. That guy's out. And by the way, I don't know why we always talk about the single motherhood problem in America, but we don't talk about the deadbeat dad problem. And deadbeat's a horrible name, but the missing father situation.
Yeah, right.
And because so often that's behind the single mom situation.
Yeah.
But we have this pattern of not valuing that relationship enough. And so people get together and they want to have a one night stand and they have sex, and then the mom gets pregnant and then the guy's gone, and then she doesn't need to support that. But then she's in a never ending pattern of finding a guy. So she'll find the next guy. She'll make the same mistake before she gets married to him and there's any kind of commitment. And now she's got 2 children and 2 baby daddies. And as an example, when I was having this conversation with this woman in Pennsylvania, that was exactly her story. And as my foster mom explained to me, Jenny, it's a pattern because of how they're feeling about themselves as single moms. And they just want someone to love them. So they'll take whatever they can get. And they'll take that, and then it leads to the next child without consideration for the traditional family model. And it's a never ending cycle. And I have compassion for these mothers because they just want a partner, but they keep getting temporary partners.
Right.
And then the child is left out in the mix. At any rate, it's a cycle that needs to be stopped. And I think it's an attitude toward casual sex that needs to be stopped, because you get into this world of hurt and it's a never ending pattern, and the children pay the price. Yeah. So that's my little very traditional example.
And listen, don't apologize for being traditional or being Christian or being anything that you are, because, you're going to get pushback. You're going to get pushback no matter what you are. No matter what you do, no matter what you say. And these are all things that you believe in so passionately, and that they're guiding your entire life and you're helping people. I don't care what your belief is. I think someone has to admire that. I think somebody has to at least say, well, look I may not agree with anything she's saying, but at least she's putting everything she has into what she believes, giving it all, living according to her principles. And that's, to me, the most important thing. I mean, I happen to agree with 90% of what you're saying. I'd like to know more about why there's not this is not about you, but there should be a dad's group. There should be a parenting, but so you're picking because you were a mom and you know what it's like to be a mom, but it would be wonderful. And maybe there is, I don't know. Maybe there are dad's groups, because it takes 2 to tango, as you said. This is not just women out there getting these positions by themselves.
No, we got a channel dad.
You do have a channel dad?
No, we need one.
Any dads out there listening? But I really appreciate what you're doing. I just, for so many, because you're covering so many areas too, and I'm sure you're spread thin. So, kept focusing on prison, focusing on women in need, and then just plain old parenting tips for somebody who's not, right. You got. Because I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and they're just basically regular mom stuff. What to do with your kid this summer, what to do with your. I can't remember, to be honest. The rest of them I've written down here somewhere, but I mean, just nothing tragic, just regular old happy happy mom stuff, right? So, because
just to help them. And we definitely deal with mothers struggling with depression and mothers struggling with anxiety. And we try to encourage moms in the midst of their woes too, and being overwhelmed and being tired and all those things. We try to address that as well. But you're right. And some of it needs to be falling on the father as well. And thank you for your grace. Look, bottom line, you're right. Not everyone's going to agree with my posture, but I don't need to apologize for it. I'm called to love my neighbor. Yeah. And I've chosen to love my neighbor moms and my neighbor moms' children and to help them be better for the sake of their future and the future of our whole world, frankly.
And you know what I also love that you're doing is that this whole show is about how we change the world. And this woman last week, for example, she says, well, I was a high fashion model and I got, a good business degree and education and I have artistic talent. And I have this experience of being around the world. How can I take all these things and put them together, take what I have, my unique package, and help the world? And so she's, does no waste fashion, and she does, things to help the environment and to not use animal, skins in her clothing and things like that. So what I'm saying is you're doing the exact same thing in a whole nother realm, but you're taking this background that you have as a communicator, as a broadcaster, as a person who knows how to present yourself and how to speak, and you're using it for this. So I mean, honestly, just bless you for that, because that if everybody would do that, think what an amazing world we'd live in.
Thank you. And I want to say two quick things. One is I couldn't do it without my husband, and I'm very blessed to have a supportive husband, because I did take time off from television to raise our children and to found Channel Mom, and it was no money for many years, and so he had to support me. So I'm grateful. It's one reason I believe in traditional marriages, that I've got a spouse who supported me. And moms would not be receiving help if he hadn't. And I'm not just saying that because he's over there and we're having our anniversary celebration. But secondly, yes, kudos to that woman that was featured before me.
It's everyone,
She's not just depending on her beautiful face. Right. She's working on her beautiful heart, and so that was really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, let's just, we're kind of at the end of the, I don't want to keep you 1 minute longer because I already know you're on borrowed time. I'm on borrowed time. I'm going to put the notes up on again, how to get tickets, how to support you, how to find your website. But can they buy just a couple last minute things on this Accelerate? Who came up with that name, first of all? Very clever. You're going to accelerate and celebrate.
Yeah, kudos to Michelle. She did. That's one clever. Night she just called me. She said, "I think I thought of it." So yeah.
Can they buy tickets at the door? Do they have to buy them ahead of time? How does that work?
Technically, they can't still get the special at the door, but so this is what I'm going to say. You get $50 off, I think, if you buy them before the gate.
Incentive. Yeah.
If it's two people, you get $50 off. So it's $25 a person, but still it's something. If you have a couple. So it's $50 off before you buy them at the door, but yes, you can buy them at the door. If you want to buy them anytime up until you go to the gate, it's channelmom.org, and you'll see Accelerate right there on our front slider. Just click on that. You
cannot miss it, I guarantee.
You cannot miss it. You cannot miss it.
And that includes all the food, the dancing, the racing. Do you pay extra to race?
Well, you pay a little bit extra to race. I'm trying to think if it's 25 or 50.
Oh,
it's not much. It's not a lot to pay to race. Or you can pay to be a passenger, which is even less expensive.
Who on earth would pay to be a passenger in a speedway?
Well, Deborah,
I control way too much.
A passenger with me. Yeah. Yes, I understand that. I don't
know how your driving skills are. Put my life in your hands.
Yeah, that's right. I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of kidding. Kind of. All right, my dear. Thank you so much. I loved talking to you this story. You're a great speaker, great storyteller, and it's really compelling. So thank you so much for joining me. Such short notice, but we'll get many people. Please join us next Thursday. I'm going to be there.
Yeah. Can I say thank you to you? Thank you to you for having a heart to change the world, to make it a better place. I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
Yeah.
Take care. Right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Deborah. Bye-bye.
Bye.